Jamaica has been managing the virus using the tools that science and data are providing us, and the process has been one of iterations as you respond to the changes and the variants, which seem to be coming up with greater rapidity now.
Omicron.
And now even K4. But the good news is that we have been achieving a reasonably good rate of response from our people in general, and that's always very important. The result, of course, is we're seeing low infection levels, where the last count was 3.5% infection level, which is commendable.
Right.
Especially that the standard is 5%. We have low death of less than 2% now, and 1 point, just a little over 1%. Wow. And we're seeing hospitalization levels that are equally very low. So what is happening is Jamaica has been able to develop a level of confidence in the global tourism marketplace that has enabled our benefit and has enabled us to recover at a reasonable level. At the moment, we're just a little over 60% of 2019 level,
right.
Both in earnings as well as in visitor arrivals. The jobs which we lost 130,000 jobs immediately after COVID in tourism.
Oh.
We have now recovered really close to 80,000 of those jobs. And this winter, we expect to move it even a little higher. So the jobs are coming back, the earnings are coming back, and the arrivals, of course, are coming back at a pace. And that augurs very well, I believe, for us, provided the global management of COVID, improves.
Exactly.
Because we move at the behest of the world, it seems. And each day we're hearing of new measures by countries to restrict and or change border control arrangements and access to different destinations. And these policies have what you call unintended consequences on small destinations and tourism-dependent regions such as ours in the Caribbean and Jamaica. Well, first of all, Jamaica was the first country in the region to develop a full set of protocol after the World Health Organization declared the pandemic.
Exactly.
But even before that, we had established the first and only global World Tourism Crisis and Resilience Management Center. In fact, let me give you the appropriate acronym. It's the Global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center. That is GTRCMC. And we established that in 2018, following on a final conference to close the year of sustainable tourism development declared by the United Nations. And out of that, we had something called the Montego Bay Declaration, which called for three key outcomes. One was a global resilience and crisis management center to deal with disruptions that were anticipated based on the fact that tourism is a highly vulnerable industry to disruptions, and we have had experiences of disruptions that have upended the economies of tourism-dependent regions. So we needed to have institution, a capacity to respond to crises of this nature, but more so to track it, to be able to anticipate it, to manage it when it comes, to recover quickly, and then to grow. So that was the first. The second, of course, was to look at multi-destination tourism as a strategy for collaboration among tourism areas to provide greater value propositions for visitors and to enable long-haul traffic to come into our space and to maximize the benefit from the experiences in the area. And thirdly, to develop a capacity to manage better the small and medium tourism enterprises that are the bedrock of tourism, and who are 80% of tourism, but they only receive 20% of the returns from tourism. And that kind of symmetry had to be addressed and the whole rebalancing to take place. And we felt that there were three critical pillars on which that rebalancing could be achieved. One was to train and develop the capacity of the small players to have greater variety and to manage better their process. Second was to provide funding, credit, capital for them so that they could expand and grow business. And thirdly, to provide marketing support and training. So these three critical pillars have underpinned the way that we have tried to build that sector within our country. So when the announcement was first made in January of 2020, that the Hunan experience was going to become a global issue. Jamaica established immediately a crisis management task force because we understood that based on the fact that we had established this resilience center at the University of the West Indies. And we began to work on finding ways to deal with this disruption, but more so to try to understand it. And so by March of 2020, when the WHO formally declared that there was a pandemic, Jamaica was ready to put in place our task force for recovery. And it is that task force of recovery now that went about bringing teams together to build the protocols. And so we developed a 385-page protocol, which had all the touch points, 21 touch points of managing the pandemic as we understood it. So the issues of social distance and wearing of masks and the sanitary arrangements in all our activities, and issues of testing and to determine the state of your health, and later on vaccination, became all part of what constituted this protocol. We went out after purchase and enable our tourism workers to have access to the private protective equipment, the personal protective equipment, PPEs as we call them, so that all our partners, stakeholders had access to that, and we saw to it that they wore them and used them. And then we went to train the stakeholders in developing the infrastructure required to manage the protocol. We had that creating decals that would designate areas within the 6 to 8 feet social distancing. We taught them how to rearrange the furniture within the restaurants and beach areas to facilitate this. And then after, we sought to certify those who now were COVID compliant. So we created a certification that would allow for us to establish on every single one of these entities the markings that indicate their level of compliance. And so out of that, we were able to direct visitors as to where to go and where not to go, based on that level of compliance. And then finally, we created a corridor, which we called the Resilience Corridor. All the tourism properties within that corridor had to be fully COVID compliant. The good news is that that corridor represents some 85% of the tourism experiences that Jamaica had to offer. So we were in a good position to say we have a bubble, have a safe bubble in Jamaica that the visitors could go to, enjoy their experiences, and to go back to their country as COVID-free as was humanly possible. Well, very good question, because at the heart of tourism is travel.
Yeah.
And travel is facilitated by connectivity, whether by air, land, or sea. And so we as island states rely almost exclusively on air connectivity with a limited level of sea connectivity, as we have no borders, no land borders to facilitate ground transportation. So we have to work with airlines. We have to work with countries too in building the possibilities for air connectivity. And I'm here in the UAE, for example, on part of that mission.
Okay.
But I want to make the point that in terms of regional connectivity, Jamaica is the most connected island in the Caribbean.
Oh.
We have air connectivity to more than 200 gateways in the United States. We're fully connected into Canada and much of the Europe, especially UK. So we are good in terms of air connectivity in those key parts of the world, but we are very weak in terms of air connectivity in Asia, in the Middle East, the Far East, of course, and the Near East. So we are now moving with energy to balance that situation. And I'm here talking with some of the big airlines, the Gulf Airlines. I was in Jordan 2 days ago talking with the Royal Jordanian Airline. I've had conversation with the Emirates here. We're going to talk with Etihad in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, and then, of course, Qatar. I've already approached Qatar at another time, which was, in fact, the pre-pandemic period.
Oh.
Now I have to look at the post-pandemic period and to see how we could enable a connectivity out of this part of the world. But this discussion is not just about the particular airlines and the connections into the Caribbean and the Americas. It's about creating gateways. And so I'm looking at the Middle East Gateway. In fact, I should have mentioned also that we're talking with Saudia from Saudi Arabia, Saudian Airline, and that brings together for us the full constellation of mega airlines in the Gulf states. So we want to create gateways, and we think that for example, Dubai is a useful gateway here. So is Amman in Jordan, Riyadh, and also Doha. These are important gateways that connect now Asia. We're working to get connectivity out of India, air connectivity also out of China. The China air connectivity issues have been long and protracted. And part of it, of course, is equipment and the whole business of ensuring that there's cost effectiveness in that movement. Multi-destination tourism is an interesting formula to deal with those critical mass structures that will affect how large airlines, with big equipment like the A380s and the 387s and the 777-300s and those and the
basically the long haul flights.
Absolutely. So we are in the process now of discussing with some of our partners in the Caribbean, particularly Mexico, the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Panama, and more recently Colombia. And so we think that these six of us could form a very significant market area that would be very attractive to the long haul airlines that are there. So we're looking at how to rationalize, airspace and to look at border issues and to create single visa regimes and those types of travel facilitation to enable easier and more seamless access into our destination, but also to provide a customer value proposition that is unbeatable.
Right.
So the visitor can have multiple experiences on one package deal that is bought for their visit. So this is an interesting new way, and we're saying that the new way, based on what COVID has done, is the elimination of competition.
Exactly.
And the insert of a new word called co-petition, where we now need to be working together to collaborate and to coordinate our efforts and to get great value from it, rather than the competitive red water issues of the past and red ocean issues, as some people call it.
Yeah.
So, and what is probably referred to now as the blue ocean strategy.
Exactly.
Where we look at how to collaborate, but also how to establish distinctiveness in that collaboration, so that the visitors will have a choice in the mix as to where they want to go, but at least they would have access to everywhere. We developed that just ahead again of COVID. In fact, I launched the Jamaica Center for Tourism Innovation in 2019, and the result has been phenomenal for us in terms of training and developing a professionalization of the industry. And this is a very important point, because tourism workers are generally classified as low-paid, low-level, low-skilled workers. And as a result, turnover rate in the tourism industry has been phenomenally high. People have not seen a career path in the industry, and very few stay with us for any extended period. Well, the process of trying to train and certify workers of the industry is a big way of improving the quality of the workers, of course, one, and two, to enable a greater sense of stability within the workforce, as it offers opportunities now to classify workers and to enable a level of mobility within the workplace. But it also does a third thing, which is to create a level of portability. Exactly. So that the worker can now, having qualified, having been certified, transmit level of skill anywhere in the world, because he is now a certified and qualified person. So the Jamaica Center for Tourism Innovation was to deal with that primarily, but it also is to develop new ideas. It's to help to build new systems, new processes, new methods of managing the industry, and creating new experiences that are in line with customer expectations, but more so customers' passions, because people try to fulfill their passions.
Exactly.
And I think that the timing of the JCTI was so apropos, as you walk now into a pandemic that is demanding so much more from you, but more so nimbleness and adaptiveness and ability to change and right. to respond quickly and to be able to give value and to be relevant. And that's a big important word, to constantly be relevant to the marketplace, because you're ahead of the curve, you appreciate the trends, you even make the trends.
Exactly.
And that's what so out of the JCTI has also emerged an incubation the program. So we're into ideas and building ideas and converting ideas into material value and to monetize ideas and to invest in ideas. So we're getting young people into this incubation center that will now bring new values to the industry. And then as they convert these ideas into material things, we pair them with the private sector so that they can now have a chance to insert these new methods and processes into the productive activity of the economy, but more so be able also to have investment in these ideas. So our banking system becomes interested in these ideas and start provide capital support for these new entrepreneurs. So startups are a big part of what is going to help to define the future competitiveness of our industry. Recall I said earlier that
Yeah.
out of the Montego Bay Declaration,
Right.
we identified the SMEs. In fact, we went further to create our own acronym of SMTEs, that is Small and Medium Tourism Enterprises. And we inserted the T in it because we wanted to make sure that we understood the specific response that these small enterprises are providing, and it is for tourism experiences primarily. So the same three-legged stool we spoke about of training and developing. So we established the Jamaica Craft Development Institute.
Okay.
And the Craft Development Institute is again to train our autochthonous, craftsmen and our artisans to have a broader view and to be able to develop wider projects and ideas coming to bring new and exciting autochthonous products to the table.
Right.
Because we wanted to have a situation of a signature product that the visitors come and recognize is authentic and is truly Jamaican. So you're buying and it offers an opportunity for them to get a better price too, because there's no need to have about the value because they can't get it anywhere else. So the principle of comparative advantage, takes its place here. So
Right.
our artists would have that value added for their presentation in the market. The second, of course, was the credit. And we established an arrangement with the Exim Bank of Jamaica.
Okay.
And from our Tourism Enhancement Fund, we contributed $1 billion Jamaican dollars to be on lend to the small and medium players at the lowest interest rates available in the market.
Okay.
And at the time it was 5%. And to give them a flexible repayment period of 5 years and over, and also to establish a benchmark of some 25 million Jamaican dollars for each entity to be on it. So what we did in that context was to enable, one, training and development, two, financing. And then third, we started to build, and we have created the first artisan village. And the artisan village placed them right on the port of call for the cruise.
Exactly.
That the cruise shippers and cruise passengers coming off have access immediately to the artisan village. And in the artisan village now, you'd have these artisans in situ. And then there would be the merchandising area for their products. And then there is entertainment, and there is cuisine for the Jamaican gastronomy. And then, of course, there's exhibition of various types of other cultural products of Jamaica. So in this way, you are achieving the three key elements. One, the training development. Two, the financing. And thirdly, the marketing. Well, that's a very interesting development, and we recall the multi-destination tourism concept, because in the frame of all of that is the scope for us to showcase as a collective the cultural values of the Caribbean as a group.
Right.
And the geography of the Caribbean suggests that we may have to divide into quadrants.
Right.
So that the one mentioned to you, for example, is what will be the northwestern quadrant, and then you have the eastern Caribbean and the southern Caribbean,
Exactly.
as the case might be. We can, in fact, create these constellations of cultural and other experiences that we can put together and market. And certainly at the Dubai Expo, there is a CARICOM presentation which involves a number of Caribbean islands. Although each of us may have our own days in which we exhibit our culture and our values, the position is that there is a Caribbean arrangement that the rest of the world can see, can respond to, and can in fact choose to be part of their leisure experiences. The point you made about other tourist-independent regions such as the Maldives and areas on the Indian Ocean, and the Philippines, and the Pacific countries. Those are very important points to look at because we need to have a greater level of collaboration between all of us who are providing these resources. And the UNWTO, as a global institution, is perhaps the right place to pull and coordinate these efforts. But the Global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center that we have established in Jamaica is attempting to do some of that.
Right.
And we're setting up satellite centers across the world. We have one in Nairobi at the Kenyatta University now that is doing a great job in terms of getting information and guidance to countries that are in East Africa and even some European countries. Yesterday, when I was in Jordan, we had discussions with the Middle East University and the Knowledge University that's there. These are two centers that we're looking at to establish satellite arrangements. And the vice chancellors of the university, they are the president of the university, have all been very strong with us on it. And so we're expecting to have a center established in Jordan by February of 2022. We're looking to do the same thing in Nigeria, in Lagos. We'll be there February 15 to 17 to look at that. And then there's and Botswana and the Bulgaria. We have a program for Bulgaria. We have Malta, and we also have the Sevilla in Spain. So, and finally, George Brown College in Toronto for Canada. So we are looking at, by the end of 22, we're pretty much having a global reach. There's a Mauritius expedition that is on the cards as well. And there's discussion about Seychelles. So we are looking at how can we bring all of these critical important values to tourism-dependent destinations to build their capacity to manage disruptions, whether they be globally transmitted or regionally transmitted, or even localized transmissions, like political issues that are in particular areas. So, absolutely correct. And that's a very important milestone for us. 60 years, 60 years and 10. If you're a religious man, you'll feel that is what is given to you, and after that is reason of strength. So I think that it's a good moment for Jamaica to reflect on the way forward. And I think that it is also coincide with this pandemic, which is perhaps potentially existential, that event that the world has seen since on the earth. And I think it is it provides a good moment for us to stop, pause or listen, look, and take a reimagining perspective as we move forward. In fact, I think this particular General Assembly was significant in many ways, but particularly because it is the first General Assembly that we've had in the presence of a pandemic, a global pandemic. And it also was one where perhaps the least number of states were represented at the level, of ministers and the highest level of political leadership. In fact, it also was one where the states were not able, because of the constraints of organization, to have country statements in the normal way that General Assemblies do, where we have 2-3 days of plenary and you hear from every country, almost the member of the UNWTO. But it also was an opportunity, I think, for us to relook at ourselves and to discuss ways of how do we reset, how do we reimagine this great industry that we have the responsibility to manage on a global level. And so out of it came a global, out of it came a task force,
Right.
which is established now to reinvent, if you will, the UNWTO to make it more responsive to the new demands that the post-COVID era is going to impose on us. But more importantly, to make it more effective as a tool to drive global advocacy of tourism, and also to establish formula for best practices to be utilized in many states. It's a very important responsibility, I think, that this body has, in that its membership must begin to feel impact of its stewardship, because we are the ones who have the responsibility to finance the operation of the UNWTO, and there are a number of small countries who can ill afford to pay their contributions even, but who are truly dependent on best practices to emerge from an institution of that nature,
Right.
of guidance in terms of how do we create better policies and more effective programs, and also how do we access, critical values that are there in the private sector and elsewhere that can inure to the benefit and growth of tourism in member states. So it's a very new and exciting moment, I think, for the UNWTO, and I believe that we can all move together and to build a new and more exciting UNWTO that will be more relevant and far more fashionable, but most importantly, more responsive to the needs of its members.
Yeah, exactly. We have, in this crisis moment, we have to collaborate, we have to help each other, and we have to, bond, stand for each other. That's more important right now.
So now we have to compete rather than compete.
Right.
That's a good. Thank
compete.
Compete and not compete.
Yes. Exactly. So finally, sir, I'll just head it to my final question. You are in Dubai. You are having I'm sure you are having a great experience at Dubai Expo 2020. So at the final moments, can you just tell us what's your experience there at Dubai Expo 2020? Why should any visitor come and visit Jamaica? What is there at Jamaica Pavilion?
Well, of course, I think the Dubai Expo is a kind of a showcase of the world, and it's an opportunity for you to see best practices and to learn from other countries how they are managing the different elements, of global engagements. We see also how technology is being used by different places to create added value, and we can draw on that. We see also how the cultural values of countries are being monetized and are being used to drive wealth and to enable countries to have a stronger well-being. We can draw from that. And then the big issue of knowledge and the exchange of knowledge, which is so vital. This is the knowledge age, as you know. And it is an age that we're using knowledge to create wealth.
Exactly.
And this also is not just a global issue, as it is an individual issue, as it is a country issue. And that ability to use knowledge for power and for growth is unique to the individual in so many ways. Because the good news is that with the digital technology now, an individual can make the difference. An individual can make a bigger difference than a country. An individual can make a bigger difference than an entire state and an entire community, if you will. So the knowledge industries are now emerging, and they are being the center of individual initiative.
Right.
It takes a little guy now in the Himalayas with a smartphone changing the world.
Exactly.
That's the power of knowledge. One person is now important. So it also creates a level of equalization where small countries are now as important as big countries. because they have knowledge, they have information, they have data, and they have the means by which to transmit that data and that information and influence thought and influence action and influence output. So this Dubai 2020 Expo is happening in the context when the world is searching for more information, for more guidance, for better utilization of knowledge. And the takeaway from it is that man is an evolving being with a capacity to expand, to grow, to know more, and to use knowledge to manage this whole process and to recover from the pandemic, and even to thrive after the pandemic.
Exactly. So in that sense, thank you, sir. Thank you for sparing your time with us. And I hope you have more experiences at Dubai Expo 2020, and we get to hear more collaborations with Jamaica and other Caribbean islands as well. And
Thank you
I'm sure,
very much.
yeah, and I'm sure there are more events till to February 2022. There will be more events from Jamaica
February
Pavilion.
will be a big event for us, yes. The Prime Minister and other leaders of the country will be here, and we will be engaging not just the partners at the Expo, but we'll be looking at investment potential from the Middle East and from the GCC countries, and we will hopefully be improving the geopolitical connectivity between the East and the West in the process.
Great.
Certainly we'll find time to showcase the rich and diverse Jamaican culture to not just the Middle East, but the world.
We'll definitely look forward to that, sir.